Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Let's do some prayers, and then after that, we will start studying from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhur Swah Tatsavitravarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat Asto Ma Satgamya Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya Mrityorma Mritam Gamya Om Sahna Bhavtu Sahna Bhunaktu Sahviryam Karvavahe तेजस्वी नाव अधीतमस्तु मां विद्विषावहि ओम शांति 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 Okay, let's open our Upanishad book, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and we are in the middle of or towards the end of this section, page number 248. And we saw that Gargi, one of the female rishi, she is asking the questions. Okay, and the answer giver is Rishi Yagyavalkya. So in this section, two questions are asked. Who created this, what we see, this universe, and who created the creator? So these are the two questions. So we saw the first question was answered and Gargi was pleased with that. Then the second question was asked. Let's start with verse number 9. So this is the answer to Gargi's question. एतस्येव अक्षरस्य प्रशासने गार्गी सूर्यः चन्द्रमसौ विधृतौ तिष्ठतः एतस्येव अक्षरस्य प्रशासने गार्गी ध्यावा पृथ्वीव्यो विधृते तिष्ठतः एतस्येव अक्षरस्य प्रशासने गार्गी निमेषः मुहूर्तः अहोरात्रि अन्य अर्धमासः मासः ऋतवः संवत्सरः इति विधृतातिः तिष्ठन्ति एतस्यैवाक्षरस्य प्रशासने गार्गी प्राच्यो अन्यः नद्याः सेयन्दन्ते श्वेतेभ्यः पर्वतेभ्यः प्रतीच्यो अन्यः यां यां च दिशमनु एतस्यैव अक्षरस्य प्रशासने गार्गी दत्ततो मनुष्याः प्रशंसन्ति यजमानं देवः दविर् पितरोः अन्यवायतः. So Rishi Yagyavalkya is saying, under the rule of this very absolute word is used for Brahma, absolute truth. Under the rule, prashasan means the rule. So under the rule of this very absolute, O Gargi, the sun and moon are held in their own courses. Under the rule of this very absolute, O Gargi, heaven and earth hold their own positions. Under the rule of this very absolute, O Gargi, moments, muhurats, days and nights, fortnights, months, seasons, and years are maintained in their respective places. Under the rule of this absolute, O Gargi, from the white mountains, under some rivers flowing eastward, others flowing westward, and still others flowing in different directions, keep to their respective courses. Under the rule of this very absolute, O Gargi, people praise the charitable, the gods depend on the sacrificer, and the mains on the detached fire offerings. So this is a verse number 9 of this section. So Yagyavalkya beautifully elaborating that who is that ultimate controller. We saw in the previous mantra where he negated all relative attributes in the absolute reality. And absolute reality, he called it akshar, imperishable, the immutable. Those who cannot grasp the truth through that description can come to wrong conclusion that absolute is a non-entity, a vacuum, or a void. There are some philosophies, they say that. But in order to remove the misunderstanding, in this mantra, Yajnavalkya is giving an inferential evidence. So he's inferring it. That is one way to give the truth in favor of the existence of the absolute. So absolute is not a shunya, it's not a vacuum, it's not nothingness, it is something. So sage Yajnavalkya says that it is due to this supreme command. See, Prashasan. It's almost like a command of that government, of that imperishable supreme being, the sun and the moon, stay apart and move in their fixed orbits. The courses which have been marked out for them. Otherwise, they would be colliding with each other. And they can destroy themselves also. But we know that they don't. Sometimes we wonder, they are sportless in the space, subjected to the pull of the gravitation, which they exercise on each other. It proves beyond all doubts the existence of the omniscient, omnipotent God who controls them. Controls them to stand in their respective places, who distinctly marks the course of their movements with the unmistakable accuracy, and who never allows them to violate. I'm sure when we think about it, we wonder, who is that? See, just like the existence of a lamp is the ground for inference for the existence of its maker, the same way the sun and the moon are the causes for the inference of the existence of that omniscient God. If the creation is there, and creation is working so beautifully, there got to be a creator. Inference is a process of logical reasoning. Through inference, we come to know some unknown thing. So it's like through the medium of some known thing. See, sometimes we know things through the direct perception. But sometimes there's no direct perception, we have to infer. So this is the inference he is talking about. So we infer the existence of the unperceived, omniscient God in the universe by observing the sun, by observing the moon, he says. Functioning in a well-regulated fashion. Remember, the existence of the sun and the moon is always related to their creator and controller. And the creator must have the tremendous power to create and rule these mysterious heavenly bodies of effulgence. During the daytime, we see the sun. At night, we see the moon on the earth. Effulgence. And even more powerful, well-regulated, well-destined phenomena in the endless space in the cosmos. It's endless. Multi-universes. There has to be a creator. In the government of that imperishable, the heaven and the earth stay apart. Otherwise, they would have fallen on each other because of their weight and the force of gravitation. It is because they have a creator, not only a creator, a ruler also. Ruler who is intelligent, ruler who is omniscient, that they stay apart and they move in a destined direction and are subjected to disruption. So in other words, Yajnavalkya is saying that heaven and earth are controlled by this omniscient ruler and they maintain their position. So from here we can infer that existence of the imperishable, who is not merely the creator of the universe, but also through whom the universe continues to live and move and has its being after creation. In the government of that imperishable moments, hours, days, nights, fortnights, months, seasons, years. In other words, the time factor with all its subdivisions, right from a kalpa, we know that how big the kalpa is, equal to, kalpa is equal to 4,320 million human years. That's how long the kalpa is. Down to the blink of an eye, Nimesh. The whole thing stays regulated. All the divisions of the time, including the division of the past, present, and future, are very carefully created and controlled by this power, this absolute, or him with a capital H. In other words, it accounts for the systematic and unfluctuating position and movements of the moon and the earth, and also the other heavenly bodies who move in their orbits around the sun. Also, the rotation of the earth on its axis, its revolution around the sun in fixed period of time, the movement of moon around the earth, and also around the sun. That's how this division of time we can account for. This is an ample evidence for the inference of the existence of the omniscient self, the ruler of the universe. Need to think about it, need to meditate upon it. The same way in the government of this imperishable, some rivers flow, he says in this mantra, regularly from the snowy mountains towards the east like Ganga, and keep the course chalked out for them. They do not deviate from the set path. And some rivers, he says, they flow towards the west, such as the Indus River, and others flow to their respective directions and towards their marked destinations. In the government of this imperishable absolute, human beings praise the givers of charity. We often talk about Danveer Karan or Bali. Why? Because there is someone who connects the givers with the imperceptible results of their charity. Although we do not directly perceive the results of charitable acts, because in the true sense, anybody who gives the charity, they do it selflessly. They are not looking for any kind of a result from that. But if we reflect on that, if we infer on that, we see that those who give are rewarded by some unseen power. For the acts themselves perish instantaneously. So the physical part, it ends. But the effect of that stays with the person who's giving the charity. It is God alone who connects the donor with the future results of his charitable work. So these days in Kali Yuga, we just look at if we give the charity, we should have some kind of a tax break. Or we should have some kind of a name printed somewhere. But the true charity is where we give and we even forget that we have given. If the right hand is giving, the left hand should not even know that I have given. That is the true charity. But God watches. And this is what Rishi Yagyavalkya is saying. God alone connects the donor with the future results of his charitable work. And the same way the celestial praise, the Devatas, celestials are the Devatas. They praise the sacrificer, the person who does the yajna, because they subsist upon the offerings made by him. It is that supreme power, the imperishable, which has ordained the celestials to live upon the offerings made by the sacrificers. Otherwise, they could have lived without them too, but this is the law. Not only the Devatas, he talks about in this mantra, even the mains, the Pitris, in the same manner depend upon the offerings made to them. So that's why there are so many rituals which are called sacrifices also. We thank and we give in the name of our ancestors, in the name of the Devatas also, but ultimate giver is God himself, the absolute Brahma, whatever name we call him by. In the next mantra, he says, mantra number 10, Yo vaha etat aksharam gargehe viditvaha asmin lokehe juhoti yajte tapah tapyate bahuni varsh sahasrani antah devabhya tadvad iti yo va etat aksharam garge vidvitvaha asmal lokahat prati sakripnaha athya etat aksharam garge viditvaha asma lokaha etesa brahmanaha. Whoever, O Gargi, without knowing this absolute, makes fire offerings, performs sacrifices, practices penances for many thousand years in this world, finds all that work only transitory. Whoever, O Gargi, leave this world without knowing this absolute is pitiable. So sometimes we wonder, what is the goal of our life? Very clearly, our rishis are telling us the goal of our life is to know ourselves as a part of him. Otherwise, he says, if we leave this world without knowing this, absolute is pitiable. But he, O Gargi, who leaves this world after knowing this absolute, is a knower of a Brahma. Beautiful verse, very clear and very simple also. So sage Yagyavalkya continues his reply to the second question. It has been shown that the imperishable, the supreme being exists. commands and ordains the whole cosmos, including the actions of the individual beings. Because when he talked about the sacrifice, or when he talks about the charity, those are the individual activities which we do. The mere fact that people give charity, perform sacrifices to the gods, and make offerings to the ancestors goes to establish the existence of one. That one who's omnipotent, who's the ruler, who's the one who rewards us. We don't have to ask for the reward. This is the law. Ascetics who practice penance for many years in order to gain the supreme goal, they also get their reward, proper reward. This only confirms the rulership of the Supreme Being who connects the persons with the results of their actions. And it is the knowledge of this being that saves a person from coming back here again and attain the ultimate goal. So Rishi Yagyavalkya is saying, whoever makes offerings, performs sacrifices, practices penance, because these are all very important duties of us. If we do it even for many thousands of years in this world without knowing this absolute, imperishable, is not doing the right way. That means if a person does all that, but does not believe in the existence of the all-pervading Brahma, all these actions would be futile. So that's why while doing yajna, while doing charitable acts, while doing the tapa, remembrance of that Om connects us with this absolute. This is what he is saying. You remember in Bhagavad Gita also, Lord Krishna, he said, Om Tat Sat. Whether you do the yajna or the dana or the tapa, always remember that Om Tat Sat. Remembering the Brahma, remembering that is the ultimate goal, while doing these physical acts also. Om Tat Sat. The same thing Rishi Yagyavalkya is saying. If a person does that, he even says that even for thousands of years or thousands of lives, keep on doing the actions without recognizing the presence of the Brahma, is not going to get anything in return. The fruits of such actions, however great and magnificent they may be, they get exhausted some day or other. So if such a person departs from the world, not knowing this imperishable, he is really pitiable, because his life has been miserable and he will be subjected in future to an endless series of birth and death and the pains of this world. Anytime we come over here, there's a pain. We often talk about that birth is a pain, the growth is a pain, old age is pain, ultimately death is pain also. That's why our Rishi said, remember, do all the duties, but never forget this absolute. A person who drops his mortal body after knowing the imperishable as his self and the self of all beings, the ruler of all the worlds, and the absolute reality, he says, he is a Brahman. or he is a knower of Brahma, because Brahman in sense is a knower of Brahma, and he does not transmigrate anymore. So he is really chalking out what we need to do and how to do it. And some of it we already are doing it, but we got to just polish it a little. Whether we are giving the charity, or whether we are doing the yajna, or whether we are doing the tapasya, doing the seva, never ever forget that higher goal, Brahm, absolute. Next verse. तद्वै एतदक्षरं गार्गे दृष्टं द्रष्टुः अश्रुतं श्रोत्री अमतं मंत्रिः अविज्ञातं विज्ञात्रिः न अन्ये अदातः अस्ति द्रष्टुः न अन्या ततो अस्ति श्रोत्रिः न अन्ये अतो अस्ति मंत्रिः न अन्येतो अस्ति विज्ञात्रिः एतनस्मिन् कल्वक्षरेः गार्गे आकाश उतश्व प्रोतश्च इति. Verily this absolute, this is verse number 11, verily this absolute, O Gargi, is never seen, but is the seer. Beautiful. Never seen, but is the seer. It is never heard, but it is the hearer. It is never thought, but it is the thinker. It is never known, but is the knower. There is no other seer than it. There is no other hearer than it. There is no other thinker than it. There's no other knower than it. This very absolute, O Gargi, pervades the unmanifested ether. So verse number 11, further he is explaining that the Supreme Being, called the imperishable, is not an object of sense perceptions, but itself the basis of all perceptions. There is no knowing subject other than this imperishable. This is like a conclusive view expressed by this great sage Yajnavalkya in reply to the second question. So the imperishable cannot be subjected to perception like other objects.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think you can.
So this is like a conclusively sage Yajnavalkya is expressing with these very strong words over here, that imperishable cannot be subjected to perception like other objects, because it is the very basis of each and every act of perception. And how do we perceive? Through our senses. All perceptions are founded in it, rise from it, and manifest themselves in it, and finally merge into it. So the imperishable, being absolute intelligence, is perception itself. That's why he's saying it's the seer, the seen, and the sight coming together into one non-dual existence, where all the names and the forms get lost. Just like in the ocean, in that water. Where do the waves go? Where do the bubbles go? Where does that froth goes? Back into that. This absolute does not come under sense objects. It cannot be seen like other objects. That's why he says, you cannot see it. It's not an object. It is the hearer, the heard, and the hearing. The thinker, the thought, and the process of thinking. and the knower knowledge and knowing. There is no other seer than it, no other hearer than it, no other thinker than it, and no other knower than it. Very clearly, the sage is telling us. In short, it alone is. The whole universe is it alone. On it, the imperishable, the unmanifested, founded. See, manifested is founded with the unmanifested. And unmanifested is founded only on this absolute. The absolute really can neither be a cause nor an effect, although it is stated to be all the universe and the cause of Ishwar, the unmanifested, which is the seed of the universe. So with these strong statements, this is what he's telling us. Sahuvacha Brahmana Bhagwant Dev Bahu Manedhvam Yasmat Karen Muchedhvam Na Vejatuhu Yushkamak Imam Kaschit Brahmodyam Jeteh iti Tatah Vachak Kanyupra Upramah iti Ashtam Brahmanam. So now Gargi is saying, after listening to this discourse, she said, Venerable Brahmans, so that means all of the Brahmins and the Rishis who were sitting over there, he is telling them, you should consider it enough if you can get off from him with a salutation. Certainly none of you can ever defeat him in expounding Brahm. Then the daughter of Vachaksu kept quiet. So that means she accepted her defeat. That Rishi Yagyavalkya, he is qualified to take those cows with all the gold on them. After listening to this nectar of discourse on the absolute, Gargi actually turned towards the other scholars because they were very high-level rishis, scholars sitting over there. And that's why she's saying that it is better for them to close down the debate. We have asked enough questions. Nobody could defeat him. Let Rishi Yagyavalkya enjoy the cows presented by the king and the honor of being the most learned in that assembly. Because he is unsurpassable in arguments concerning Brahma. Because that was the topic, Brahma. So after saying that, she resumed her seat. So this is the end of this section. And then we'll start the last section of this chapter next week. Sakalya Brahman. And we'll see the further arguments over there in a different setting. So let's stop today's class right here and we'll start with the next one next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Vishishyate Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.